Well, we hope you've enjoyed our encore presentation of American Portrait, Central Illinois, Lift Every Voice. We're here live in the studios of WILL TV in Urbana. I'm Sarah Edwards. I directed and edited the documentary you just saw. And we are lucky and really fortunate tonight to have with us the stars of the show, so to speak. We have Dr. Ollie Watts Davis, who is the conductor of the University of Illinois Black Chorus, Dr. William Sutherland, who's the artistic director of the Windy City Performing Arts organizations. There are two choirs, and Jeffrey Thomas, who's the conductor of the Danville High School Madrigals, as well as being the conductor of six or seven other choirs at Danville High School. Thank you all very much for joining us tonight.
Of course.
Thank you.
Pleasure to be here.
Before we get into this discussion, I wanted to encourage everyone who's listening in tonight to send us your comments and your questions. This is your opportunity to ask these guys how they did what they did, and ask your questions about what it's like to be in a choir, how things have changed with COVID. Maybe some of you out there are choir singers like me. And so just put your questions and your comments in the comment section of our Facebook Live feed, and we will try our best to get to them. Wanted to start out with you, Dr. Sutherland, because we owe you a debt of gratitude here, because you essentially came up with this idea.
Well, I do research on LGBTQ choruses generally. And being around and in choirs and doing research on choirs are a weird and interesting thing. And interestingly, what I found is that historians and scholars are very interested in what choirs do. And so when we were looking at this time period and this really bizarre is really the best word that I can use for it, sort of change that we've had to make to accommodate for the safety precautions necessary for COVID, which means for choirs not singing in person at all. I knew that this was something that should be captured, but I certainly wasn't something that I was prepared to do. So I was so grateful when I reached out to you, that you, with your choral background and your background in music documentary work, it was a really good fit.
Well, one of the major things that I did not edit into the documentary was the fact that you did this entire job of being hired by Windy City Performing Arts and conducting your first season from your home in North Carolina. So you were not even in Chicago. That really was something I debated about putting in, but then just, time and artistic considerations, I decided not to. So how did that make things even tougher? So first of all, you have the basic restrictions of you can't meet your choir in person, but Dr. Davis and Jeff Thomas have had the experience of being with their members, connecting with them on a personal level, and you have not been able to do that except for over Zoom. So tell me a little bit about that experience.
The one thing that it has required more than anything else is trust. And that trust has not come easy, and it's not been perfect either, actually. The folks on the other side of the computer screen who have never met me before have to trust that what I'm asking them to do, what they are sending to me, and then what our ultimate product is going to be is something that they're going to be proud of. They have no reason to trust that. They have no reason to expect that that is going to be the case. And actually something that's even harder is that whereas in a traditional rehearsal process, they would get moments of reinforcement. Each week as we were working through the music, we would have some moment where the music would be really good, even if just for a measure or two measures, and they'd have that instantaneous feedback. You don't get that in this process. So not only do they got to trust me that it's going to turn out well, they have no feedback in the moment. And then there's also the problem of trying to build relationships with people. I don't know about your experiences all the time or the experiences of our other panelists here, but email is kind of a crappy way to communicate a lot of times. Like, it's really hard to express one's tone in a way that always comes across well. And, people can misconstrue what you're trying to mean a lot. And that's also been a bit of a barrier. So finding ways to connect and build relationships with these people that I'm asking a lot of, who don't know me, and using mechanisms that don't always have the best way of communicating. I am eternally grateful that they suspended disbelief and we got to this point. They trusted the process.
Dr. Davis and Jeff, for example, I know another thing we were not able to show is that Dr. Davis implemented, I'm not sure for the first time, but I think it was for the first time, you kind of asked your choir members to team up and be each other's counselors through this time and kind of meet periodically to help each other. And so talk about that, but also some of the techniques that you implemented to bring people closer together over the past semester.
Well, thank you for this opportunity. And I too want to thank William for initiating this. And I wholeheartedly agree that the quality of any relationship is the trust factor. And whether you have met with your students or your choir members or not face to face, you're still working on that trust factor. To answer your question, Sarah, regarding our mentoring or buddying up protocol or a program that we instituted, I could tell that the students needed just some peer-to-peer transferring of understanding and a sense of comfort, and just needed another ear to listen to. And so our officers, our executive team, our president, Gabrielle Dogger, she went through the roster and looked at those who had similar majors, and she grouped them together in that way. And then from that, those groupings, then she sort of branched them out. And of course, the organic relationships started. And you could tell when the students would come in, they were waving from across the stage. You know, they were happy to have had that time to just share outside of class. Some challenges that we faced and that techniques I had to implement, there were some things that I had to follow just for safety. And I didn't mind doing that because I wanted to be safe. I want the students to be safe. And yet I wanted to have this platform because I really felt that they needed an in-person experience with the music, and especially my new students, those who had never met me before. They needed to meet me, and then I could call upon the returning students to kind of guide them along the way. But we had the restriction of, on the Great Hall stage of Krannert Center for the Performing Arts, I could not have more than 24 individuals. And that included me, the pianist, and any other musicians. Sarah, your team, it couldn't exceed that number. And so we had to space out, of course, and wear the singers' masks, as you saw on the documentary. And I was able to keep them for 30 minutes. Then I had to clear the space, and then we get returned for 30 minutes. And so what I did was I reserved two spaces. I reserved the Great Hall stage where everyone was together, and then release them after 30 minutes. And then would take a smaller group, a sectional, so to speak, and we would go to one of the rehearsal rooms. And we would, do parts and et cetera. And then after 30 minutes, we return to the Great Hall stage and be joined again with the other students. Had to get a lot of permissions when we got ready to actually film for the documentary, because the number of students actually exceeded the number that that I was supposed to have. I'm so grateful that my colleagues at Krannert Center and in the College of Fine and Applied Arts just really supported this project, and the permissions were granted, and the students really worked really hard, and I think they're pleased with what they were able to offer.
Excellent. Jeff Thomas, so you're working with a bunch of high schoolers, and boy, if there's a time to connect with others, it's high school, so, and another thing I wasn't able to include were the steps that you took. So, having kids play for each other when class wasn't in session. Tell me about some of the challenges you've had and the ways you've connected.
Yeah. So as anybody who's been in a choir knows, is that choirs is a family. And I think people hear that a lot, but I don't think that really people understand the true depth of what that means until you're actually in a choir with 50 other people at the same time, because singing is a very vulnerable thing. And so to do it poorly, or to do it when you're rehearsing and you're making those mistakes and you're refining something, there's a lot of, like everyone said, there's a lot of trust. Dr. Davis, you said it so perfectly just now, that she was, the huge shout out to those new members that don't know us, they don't know the other people around them. And it's just, it's a really a tough thing to do for anybody, much less a teenager. So we do a whole student hierarchy from president to vice president on down. We have dance captains in 3 of the choirs that are show choirs that help out kids as section leaders. But the really cool thing that we've kind of implemented in the last like 3 years is that we do like a big and a little, which is something you kind of see in like sororities at the college level. And so they have basically like a big who's a junior or a senior, and they are always there looking out for, making sure the notes are right, making sure mentally they are okay. I think that's really been the biggest thing this whole year, is that we're not so much checking on people to make sure our pitches and our dance moves are correct anymore. We're making sure that everybody's feeling okay, that we're happy, that we're making it day to day. And I think that's really been the big thing with the big and the little program that we've had going on, is that's been really important.
We have a question. And the question is about face masks. So, and this is directed, of course, to Dr. Davis. The question is, I'm curious about what singing with the masks was like. And I think, so if you could address that for both what you've heard from your students and also from yourself as a performer, how that's been.
Wow. I think before we got the singer's mask, which let me shout out to the School of Music because they provided them for all of our singers and all of our choir members, not just my choir, but all the choirs and all the voice students and lyric theater students, etc. So we're really appreciative of that. Initially, the students are just wearing the mask that really is close and covers, and they realize how restrictive that can be. And then when we finally distribute the singer's mask, there's more space between the mouth and the end of the mask. So there is some sense of distance. So I could really encourage them to take, substantial breath. And then I call it big mouth singing, really just open up and really give me, a dynamic that was going to reach the back of the hall. And so it took them a little while to adjust, because they felt, and I think I said it on the documentary, this seems like a hindrance, but don't let it be, because they were singing very small. And then once I said that, they're like, oh, okay, just sing as if it's not there, and sing from your eye, sing from your expression, your placement isn't in the mouth anyway. So we did some vocal technique things as far as projection and placement. And it was challenging in the beginning, but then they got used to it. And I think the very first time I sent them a recording of themselves actually singing, they heard themselves. They were like, oh my goodness, this sounds like us. And because we were spread so far apart, not like the normal distance in choir rehearsal or in performance, it's hard for them to hear one another. But when they got the recording, I think that really affirmed what they were doing. For me as well, as an acoustic singer, it was quite restrictive to start with, but I just had to adjust to it and use the technique that we worked on, all of our professional lives and deliver. But just trying to get used to it not being there. I'm going to try a different mask this spring, because the wiring and the way those really kind of set on the face was not as comfortable as I'd like for it to be. So I'm going to look for something a bit more comfortable for the students.
It was one of the things that we struggled with making the film with the Black Chorus is, boy, does it take away, wearing a mask takes away one of the real fundamentals of what singing is, which is facial expression, and so, I mean, this isn't really a question, but I think, some of the words that you said to your choir to encourage them really, really kind of was an attempt to get past the fact that we could no longer see what singing is, which is, about faces and expression. And so, well, I don't really have a question, to be honest. It's just a statement.
Well, I think you're referring to when I told them that, your communication is more than just your facial expression. It's more than just the words that you use. It's your body language, it's the intent behind what you're doing that you feel when you actually deliver the music, it's in your voice, it's in your eyes. And so we have to focus on that. I guess I want to go from an optimistic sort of viewpoint. Let's use what we do have rather than moan what we cannot do. And so in doing that, I think they were able to capture that and deliver upon that. What we would have done, as I think Jeff said, they're dancing. We rock when we sing. We clap when we sing. We do all kinds of things, when we sing. We're very expressive. We want the audience to join in. That's the highest evaluation of what we've offered, is if the audience starts to sing along with us. And we're encouraging the person who stands in front. And in this past semester, I did not have opportunity to work with the soloists and really bring out what they could do, and so that was a challenge, which we hope to do in the spring.
Excellent. We have another question to all three of you. It says, I'm curious how these directors encourage their members to keep vocal technique going at home. I'd imagine the home environment and sitting in chairs in front of screens isn't conducive to producing great vocal sound. Singers may get lazy if directors aren't watching from the podium. So, and boy, that I tried to kind of cover a bit of that in the documentary, but I didn't, of course, that's another thing I didn't really get to. So Jeff, if you could talk about how your students dealt with that.
Yeah, it's really hard. It's really difficult, especially for my new people that have never had me before. So I think this year I did lean on my kids to help the other kids. So each week we tried to keep a structure where we'll learn a small amount of music, and then they send in a video, right? And every time they send in a video, I tell you what, the first week they sent in one, some of them were so far back you couldn't hear them. They were so close, it was just and they're sitting, or they're babysitting. That's the other thing. Like, I had kids sitting in videos and they're babysitting. There's 4 kids behind them, and that's the reality of learning and being in school in the middle of a COVID pandemic. And so what we've done is it's just like if we're in person. Every time I see that video when they submit their work on Friday, it's, are you using facial expressions, even though you're just singing into your phone? Are you using, are you adding the inflection that we talk about? Are you actually discussing something? Are you telling the story? Are you identifying the emotions that we're supposed to be identifying? And all those things are more important now, I think, than they ever were when we were in person. And so it's, every time I see that video, they get a little comment. And I will say that that's one thing that's been a positive, is that I get a solo sound from a choir member each week. And that is not something I had ever had before. And so really it was more like teaching private voice to 50 students each week. And then putting it all together in production at the end, which is just something that kind of the director sees. And then, so they don't ever hear themselves together as a choir until I've added every single one of those audio tracks together. And so they really do just kind of sing solo the entire semester. And so it's kind of looking at it from a different lens. I love teaching solo voice. It's a lot of fun. And not something I get to do a ton when I'm directing 7 choirs. So it was really refreshing to be able to do that and to see into a little bit more of what a solo voice can do in your choir.
So on the flip side, Dr. Sutherland, you have a bunch of rascally adults who are like, you know what, not doing it, can't be bothered. I'm going to go have, I don't know. So what kind of reaction have you gotten from your crew?
I have to admit, I got lucky. I just got lucky. The culture of the chorus that I have the opportunity to work with now, Windy City Performing Arts, the gay chorus and the treble choir, the culture of this chorus has always been one of really high level artistry. The audition expectation has always been very high traditionally, and the performance expectation has always been incredibly high. So I got lucky. I didn't really talk about vocal production a lot. I probably should have. Moving into the spring, I actually will do more. We got through the first couple of video captures. The way that our season worked, we're kind of in waves. So we would do one song for about 3 weeks. I would teach them the notes basically once. We would send them recordings that they could practice with at home, and then they would send them back. And what I heard from the members actually was not, sort of a lackadaisical, well, I'm just going to submit whatever. It actually was the opposite. I actually heard from the members, they were so painfully anxious because for the first time, they were going back and listening to the recordings and realizing that actually what they were singing was not what they wanted to be submitting. And so later on in the process, what we did was started having a review process. Now, I can't personally sit and review 75 people's recordings every single week, all of the time. We did actually probably do a little more than, we're going to scale things back for the spring. We did 7 full virtual chorus songs in about 12 weeks. It was a sprint to the finish. And so about halfway through, I'm very fortunate to have lots of folks with advanced degrees in music in my ensemble. And so we were able to delegate, to recruit some of those people to delegate the review process so that members could get feedback. But, I said early on, it was kind of about trust. And I'll be honest, it was trust on my part too. I just trusted that the process was going to go well, and it did. Thank goodness it did.
Excellent. And now a break for the technical questions. A lot of people have been wondering, how on earth did you do this? So the question is, what kind of editing software do you use, and how do you create the final product? Maybe you, Jeff, you and Dr. Sutherland can talk about kind of what you guys have done. As it's been a huge learning curve for both of you, I hear.
Well, Will, you're the pro. You can start this one out.
Sure. My workflow for the technically minded, they send their videos in. We use different cloud services depending. Usually we use Google Drive. I've also used Dropbox. It doesn't matter. However they can get us the files, they get us the files. At that point, what I actually do is I split the file into 2 pieces. I rip the audio out so that I can do all the audio editing by itself. And then we do the video on the other side. So the first step is my preferred audio editing software is called Reaper. It's very minimalist, and I like that because then I get to do whatever I want to with it. Any audio software would work. A lot of people use Pro Tools. It's sort of people call it the industry standard. But anyway, you pull everything in, you line everybody up, rinse and repeat, line everybody up. The one little extra steps that I do that I think really sort of add to the quality. One of the problems that we face in digital space, Jeff alluded to this with respect to everybody singing solo, basically. Well, one of the interesting things about the human voice is that the overtones of each person's body that's actually made by their bones and their sinuses and all the cavities and things are unique. And when you sing in a choir, you actually are trained to and instinctively listen to the people around you and make adjustments to your own overtones so that they match everybody else. You can't do that singing into your webcam on your computer. So I use Auto-Tune. Yes, I said it. So we just Auto-Tune everybody to fix that problem. So we get in Reaper. Once I've got everybody Auto-Tuned, then I have a surround sound matrixing that I like using. So it's, this stuff. So that's the audio. Okay. So then the audio's done. I get all that mixed. Then it comes into Adobe Premiere. There are other softwares that people can use, but Premiere is actually the industry standard, and there's not much. You can actually do this in, I think some people are using iMovie to do this, which kind of blows my mind. But anyway, and then it's literally, you just set up little Hollywood squares. So I pull in Susie's little video, I make her a box this big, and then I move her box over. Let me see if I can. Then I move her box over here. Then I take Jimmy's video and I make it this big and I move him here. And then I just one at a time, and we fit them all in. After I do that and everybody's lined up, then you layer, it's like if you're making a music video, then you layer the audio back under. Boop, all done.
He makes it sound so simple.
It's so time consuming and tedious and just like laborious, but
I still can't get over the auto tune thing. I'm just totally, no, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. It sounds fabulous.
a lot of fun once I figured out how to use the software. And so like that's been my new hobby, is like I'm sitting in my office like doing little recordings, and I'm sure my kids are all like, why? Like, why? Come on. It's my process is a little different, because originally the plan was just to create a holiday album, just complete audio. And I did decide that like we needed a little visual element to send out to the community, to send to you guys, and just to kind of round out the project. So originally they're just recording things on Chromebooks. And if you've never used a Chromebook before, it's what every single student in our district has, but they're not really conducive to doing things that you would use like recording like studio software. Really, you need a really high tech like Mac to use these kinds of software. So we ended up using, huge shout out to this online free educational software called BandLabs. And it's basically just a really simplified version of Pro Tools. You can get on, you can see your waves as you're recording, you can make sure that you're not too hot, not too low, and it saves. And when it saves to its own cloud. So I get all of their audio tracks kind of automatically. They don't have to worry about sending a ginormous file to me. And then basically I put it into GarageBand or Pro Tools. I do use a little Melodyne just to, just to even it out so it sounds like a choir. So it sounds like they would if they were in person. And then I pull all of that audio into Final Cut Pro. And that's the visual side of things for me. And I think that was probably the most fun that my students had, was getting in there and doing like the lip sync videos, because they did a complete audio track and then they added, they listened to their own audio track while they sang along with it. And so some of them are singing along, but some of them are just completely lip syncing. And that's kind of, the magic that Dr. Sutherland alluded to in the episode, is that it's magic and it looks really cool at the end, but it is definitely a process.
So if I can jump in, actually, what you just described are some adjustments that we'll be making for the spring. Our singers actually came to me and said, can we do the audio first? And then once they understood the process, then they were like, well, do it. Because we actually had them do the audio and video all at the same time. And that was even more stressful. So they're like, can we break this into 2 pieces? So that way we don't have to feel so stressed out about it. Yeah. Absolutely, we can do that.
Dr. Davis, do you, you've navigated all of the restrictions so beautifully, but I mean, is this giving you any ideas for the spring? I'm not sure what the plan is, and maybe this is a good question, the plan for the spring.
Yes, I plan to release some virtual offerings as well. And every month we plan to roll out at least one piece. At the end in December, as you know, we were able to do a Christmas offering to our community and alums and everyone, because they are used to a fall concert, which we weren't able to do. But so in January, we'll be hopefully having a virtual performance of a piece in honor of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. In February, we'll be doing a piece that pays tribute to Black History Month. In March is usually our conference, our symposium conference. So we're looking to have maybe some lectures as well as just virtual performance there, since we can't come together 300 strong as usual. And then in April on campus is a big celebration. We have our Mom's Day weekend, and the campus will still observe that, even though we can't have our big concert in Krannert Center with 1,500 moms there. But we will have a special offering to honor the mothers of our students. And of course, in May, we'll have a rollout, a piece that celebrates our graduating seniors in Black chorus. So some of our offerings will be virtual. I'm learning a lot from Jeff and Dr. Sutherland because I've not tried the software before. I have a couple students who have some expertise with it, and I think their way of doing it is quite similar to what you have described. I know one student said that they're usually they have industry experience, having sung professionally in LA and different things, where they usually sing to like a click track or something, and then they record, and then they go back and they lip sync the actual video part. So I'm going to be learning some of this, and then I'll be contacting you for some advice as well. But you know, Black Chorus at Illinois has a continual presence on campus since 1968. This past year is the first year we did not have two major concerts on campus, spring and this fall. But I'm appreciative that we had this opportunity for this documentary, because we were still able to deliver a performance, you know, to our community and to our alums.
Jeff and William, tell me what your plans are for the next round for spring 2021. Also, we're getting a lot more technical questions. On that note, and maybe this will be good for Dr. Davis, people are asking, what types of mics did you use, Jeff Thomas? Because all your students received a mic, correct?
So I have it right here. And it's, I don't even know, a VIM VIP. And here's the thing. Madrigals always has a small little fee that is in conjunction with the course, and that usually goes to some sort of costuming for the Madrigal dinner or some new set piece. It's a very elaborate dinner that we put on each year. It's a full 2.5 hour, like 5-course meal. There's a giant pig with an apple in its mouth that smokes. Like it's very theatrical, and we have a lot of fun with it. But because we couldn't do the dinner this year, I thought, what better way to use those funds than make sure that we all have a piece of equipment that sounds the same, that works, and that will work with a Chromebook. And so we did. You can get on Amazon and you can look up a USB microphone, and it really worked for us and for our students. They were really easy to use. It's something you can plug into a computer and it just turns on. So it kind of takes out all of the technical things that you can run into with issues with really, really like expensive and fancy equipment. We just got to plug stuff in and they got to sound really nice. And so building that confidence at the beginning of the year, and I think it started off the year right. They had pride in the equipment they were using, and they sounded good. And they all sounded the same using the same microphone.
And your plans for the second semester, Jeff?
Yeah, so we do kind of switch gears. The Madrigal course turns into a vocal jazz course. It's one of my favorite things to teach. I love vocal jazz, and it's only about 4 years old. It was around our high school a few decades ago, and it had kind of lost some speed, and we brought it back. And it started out with 12 kids about 4 years ago, and now we've got 40. And last year they were invited to perform an exhibition at the All-State Convention in Peoria, which is a huge honor for them. And so we get to switch gears. You know, we're singing these madrigal tunes, and we're basically singing Christmas songs from, you know, September until December, which is, I think a lot of people think is crazy. I've got holiday songs in my head from the end of the summer. But yeah, we switch gears. We do some vocal jazz. We have some fun. We do a lot of community performances, and then 3 of my choirs are show choirs. And so generally we would be right in the thick of going into competitions and traveling all over the country doing show choir competitions. And obviously that is going to be very different this year. So I think my biggest thing to do for second semester is to just make sure that there is still fun with school. And it doesn't just have to be my class. You know, I think kids are missing the fun out of going to school. Just chatting with their friends, talking to their favorite teachers, having those interactions. You know, it's gone. It's gone. So they're sitting in their houses in front of computers. And so my biggest goal is to make sure that even if just for the 45 minutes they see me across the screen, we have a little fun.
Excellent. William?
Yeah, so technical first, actually, something that Jeff said, I said very early on in this that I got lucky. One of the ways that I got lucky, he's talked about how the microphone makes everyone's recordings similar. We actually just use cell phones. We just had finger singers record with their cell phones, and none of them sound the same. And actually, this can be a problem when you have a smaller group like Jeff's Madrigal's group, right? Only has, what is it? I think 12 singers or something like that.
24.
Yeah. So, when you have fewer singers, the differences between the devices makes a huge difference, unfortunately. When you get up to about 70, then it doesn't matter as much what devices you use, because everything kind of, like I say, it comes out in the wash. So I definitely got lucky in that regard. A smaller ensemble, you definitely need to find uniform hardware for people to be using. Plans for the spring. Well, Windy City Performing Arts has had a program for a while called the Windy City Stars, which is a monthly giving program. So for this spring, actually, what we're going to be doing is opening up our programs nationally. So actually, the shameless plug moment, anybody watching right now could actually come and sing with us for the spring if you want to. We won't be having any auditions. You've all learned that we do a lot of work on the back end to make sure that everything works out really well for the recordings. And so we're going to be calling it the Windy City Constellation Singers. It will be, there's a small fee associated with participating, but we're going to send you a t-shirt and you'll get to meet with some really spectacular masterclass artists, some teaching artists, and we've got some speakers. We'll also be collaborating with Lakeside Pride, which is an LGBTQ band in Chicago, who will be providing our orchestration for the tracks that we'll be doing. So we'll be doing a really fun collaboration with them. We're doing a series of arrangements by a spectacular composer and arranger that I love, Mark Hayes. We're hoping to get him involved in the project as well. So we're really excited about that. If people want to find out, you can find us on Facebook, Windy City Sings. Anywhere you go, Windy City Sings will get you there, or windycitysings.org. So we'll be doing 5 pieces as a choir, and then we'll round out our June Pride concert. June, of course, is LGBTQ Pride Month. And our chorus has traditionally done a big celebratory concert for that month. And so this time we'll still be doing the Pride concert, and hopefully we'll have those 5 pieces and then some solo pieces and some small group pieces as well. So come on, anybody that's watching right now, if you want to come participate, Jeff and Dr. Watts Davis, you want to come sing with us? We'd love to have you.
It sounds exciting. It sounds really exciting.
One final question for you, Dr. Davis, and then we'll wrap it up. One of the highlights, I think, of the half hour was the original composition that you created. Any plans with that? Do you publish your music? Where can people? I mean, do you have plans to put it anywhere? Perform it again live?
Yes, I do have plans. I have several pieces that I've written. I've written several pieces specifically for the choir. And I think you heard, it's rehearsed one called Blessing. It was supposed to be 50 seconds long because I wrote it for them for the 50th anniversary. But sometimes they like to repeat a verse, so it ends up being a little bit longer. But yeah, my plans are to share the music. I have plans down the road to create my own choral series because I've written quite a few pieces. And so yes, and I appreciate this opportunity. I know that after telling the students in March that we were sheltering in and not really knowing if we'd open up in the fall, over the summer, I thought I need to gift them with something. I need to give them a message. And even though we don't like the situation we find ourselves in, we need to buckle down and see the good in it, or where's the good for us? And that's why I titled the piece For My Good. And so thank you.
Excellent. Encourage everybody watching tonight to go to will.illinois.edu, which is our website. And so it's will.illinois.edu/American Portrait, where you can see a little bit of the behind the scenes things in addition to additional performances that we were not able to squeeze into our very short half hour. So it features performances by each choir tonight. Thank you all so very much for joining us tonight, and it was wonderful to be a part of your fall preparation for your concerts. We had a really great time, and I did a lot of laughing putting this together with all the pets and the singing and the it was wonderful, wonderfully entertaining, and you know, it was a real honor to, after so many years of you know, I was raised in this area, and Dr. Davis was pretty legendary when I was, well, in high school. I mean,
Be careful.
but it was really, I know I'm so
I started as a child. It's okay.
so it was wonderful to finally meet you after hearing so much about you and following your choir for the rehearsals. So so thank you all, and hopefully we'll hear more from you in the future with our WILL programming. So
And thank
I'm Sarah Edwards, and thanks for joining us tonight.